Imagine a world where ignorance isn't the exception, it's the rule. Where the loudest voices set the rules, where every lie repeated becomes truth, and every truth is ridiculed until it disappears. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that it wasn't evil that destroyed your society, it was organized stupidity. And the worst part, it doesn't need to convince you. It just needs you to give up, to stay silent, to get tired. So tell me, will you let them think for you, or will you reclaim your voice before it's too late? We're living in that world. Stupidity isn't a glitch in the system. It's the system. It's embedded in structures, in speeches, in decisions. It hides behind opinions, common sense, and freedom of expression. But in reality, what we have is a society that rewards loud ignorance and sidelines lucid thinking. This isn't a temporary crisis. We're facing a cultural condition that celebrates the shallow, glorifies the foolish, and treats depth as a threat. The simpler the idea, the faster it spreads. The more outraged the tone, the more applause it gets. Here's the real tragedy. It wasn't evil that won, it was the ridiculous. It was mental laziness. It was the collective refusal to think. It was surrender to superficiality. Collapse didn't come with tanks in the streets. It came with memes, with popular voices speaking nonsense with confidence, with crowds defending ideas they don't understand and attacking truths they never tried to grasp. Today, any attempt at depth is seen as arrogance. Doubt is a crime. Complexity is the enemy. Thinking is a threat. It's easier to believe in pre-packaged narratives than to bear the weight of critical thought. It's more comfortable to join the crowd than to stand alone with an unpopular opinion. Mocking is easier than questioning. And that's where stupidity wins. It doesn't need to turn you into a fool. It just needs you to stop thinking, to accept noise as truth, to stay silent for the sake of peace. Meanwhile, real spaces for deep thought are closing. Schools become training centers. Social media becomes a vanity circus. Books are forgotten. Time for reflection becomes a luxury. And silence, the kind that leads to insight, is drowned out by constant noise. We're facing an epidemic of superficiality. A culture that prefers quick answers over thoughtful questions. That worships instant certainty and mocks honest doubt. And the scariest part? Stupidity organizes. It forms groups, builds idols, creates narratives. It's efficient, fast, seductive. While the lucid are still thinking, the stupid are already mobilizing. While you're hesitating, they're shouting. And while you're trying to have a conversation, they're steamrolling with slogans. And no, this isn't just an education problem. It's a collective choice, a matter of values, of priorities. Because thinking comes at a cost. It takes effort, time, discomfort, and we live in an era where no one wants to pay that price. But someone has to, because the cost of not thinking is much higher, living under the tyranny of noise, accepting as normal what should be unacceptable, becoming complicit in the destruction of your own freedom, just for the sake of convenience. Ignorance is already in power, and it won't back down just because you've noticed. It will keep advancing unless you refuse to be part of it. And it starts with one simple, radical act. Think for yourself. Most people think stupidity is just a lack of intelligence, but that's a dangerous and convenient illusion. Stupidity isn't about IQ. It has nothing to do with how much school someone had or how many books they've read. Real stupidity is an active decision, even if it's unconscious. It's the deliberate refusal to think deeply. It's the denial of complexity in exchange for emotional comfort. And that's what makes it far more dangerous than intentional evil. Evil, for all its destruction, is usually strategic. It has a plan. It has an end goal. It calculates risks. It's cold, deliberate, controlled. Stupidity? It's impulsive, unstable, enthusiastic. It acts with total conviction, but without any real awareness. It runs on recycled beliefs, surface-level emotions, and narratives that fit people's fears, not facts. That's what makes it unstoppable. A stupid person might be nice, might smile, say they have good intentions, and at the same time, they'll support ideas that tear society apart without even realizing it. That's the danger. Stupidity hides behind normalcy, behind opinions, behind common sense. It blends into the crowd. It spreads like a virus. And worse, with the help of people who think they're not part of the problem, because collective stupidity doesn't need everyone to be ignorant. It just needs people who are too busy to think, people who are willing to accept any explanation as long as it's easy to digest, people who would rather be wrong with the group than be lucid alone. A stupid person is someone who acts with total confidence but zero self-awareness. And that mix, confidence and ignorance, is explosive. You've seen it. People defending absurdities with passion. People sharing facts they never verified. People yelling in debates they don't even understand, but loud enough to shut down anyone trying to have a real conversation. And worse, the more you challenge them, the more confident they get. Because they're not seeking truth, they're seeking validation. They don't want to learn, they want to win. And if they can destroy someone in the process, even better. Nothing fuels stupidity like the feeling of being right. But here's the darkest part. Stupidity is contagious. It spreads through proximity, repetition, imitation. It thrives in groups, in echo chambers, in communities where questioning is treated as betrayal. And when it gets organized, it becomes a system, a culture, an ideology, and that's when it starts making the rules. Stupidity, once it becomes the majority, doesn't just want to exist. It wants to shape reality in its image. It wants to silence thought, punish critical voices, turn what should be a virtue, thinking, into something dangerous. It takes over institutions, twists language, manipulates symbols, it adapts, it evolves. It stays invisible until it's too late, and don't think you're immune. Stupidity is cozy. It offers instant belonging, group applause, simple answers. It whispers, don't overthink it. You're on the right side, and before you know it, you've stopped thinking at all. Stupidity is a societal anesthetic. It protects us from the pain of doubt at the cost of truth. And the more anesthetized we are, the easier we are to control. Authoritarian regimes love stupidity. So do corporations. So does cheap media. Because it's obedient, predictable, easy to manipulate. The stupid person believes they are free, but they're just repeating the commands they've absorbed. And the worst part, they're proud of it. That's why real thinking, actual critical thinking, is revolutionary. Because it breaks that cycle. It demands discomfort. It asks hard questions. It holds you accountable to your own freedom. Collective stupidity doesn't need your agreement. It just needs your inaction, your silence, your exhaustion. But if you still feel uneasy about all this, if you still have questions no one seems to be answering, if you still refuse to call the absurd normal, then there's hope. And you have a role in this. Thinking for yourself isn't a skill. It's a threat. It's a risk. It's a silent act of rebellion against everything society tries to make you accept as normal. We live in a world where repeating is safer than reflecting, where fitting in is more important than integrity, where originality is punished and critical thinking is labeled as arrogance or danger. It's no wonder so few people actually think, because thinking hurts. It's uncomfortable. It means questioning not just the world, but your own beliefs. It means admitting you may have been manipulated, that you might be wrong, that you, yes you, may have once been part of the herd. It's much easier to blame others, to point fingers, to scream at the fools. What's hard is looking in the mirror and asking, what part of me is still asleep? Thinking for yourself sets you apart. and humans are terrified of being alone. So most people choose to shrink themselves just enough to keep belonging. But here's the truth no one tells you. Belonging to everything might mean belonging to nothing within yourself. When you start thinking for real, you begin to see the ridiculous hiding in plain sight, the artificiality of public discourse, the emptiness behind most trending opinions, the shallow ideas that dominate serious conversations, and that's when the distance begins. You don't fit in anymore. You see what others refuse to see. You notice the patterns, the manipulation, the theater. It's not glamorous. It's lonely. It's draining. It's being clear-minded in the middle of a collective breakdown. But it's also freedom. Because when you think for yourself, you reclaim your choices. You stop acting out of fear or the need for approval. You can say no without hate, and yes without illusion. You can act with clarity, even under pressure. That's real power, not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that doesn't let the world dominate you. And ironically, that's exactly why society fears thinkers. Because thinkers can't be controlled. They don't follow the script. They're unpredictable. A thinker is a quiet threat to the status quo. That's why they get attacked, mocked, pushed aside. That's why most people abandon critical thinking halfway. Because it's exhausting, it's isolating, it's terrifying to realize how deep the lies go and how willingly we accepted them. But someone has to keep going. Someone has to hold the line while the world loses its mind. And maybe that someone is you. Maybe you've felt it already. That discomfort that won't go away. That clarity that makes you feel like an outsider. That voice that won't shut up no matter how much you try to distract yourself. That's not weakness. It's not overthinking. It's your consciousness knocking, reminding you that you weren't born to repeat. You were born to understand, question, rebuild. And maybe that's your role now, to be one of the few who still think, not to feel superior, but to remain honest with your own awareness. Thinking for yourself means committing to truth, even when it hurts. It means trading comfort for clarity, paying the price of consciousness, and still choosing to walk forward. Because the alternative is worse. To live numb, to follow the crowd, to become the crowd. And deep down, you've always known. You weren't made for that. Thinking for yourself is just the first step. But the real challenge comes after, staying awake. Day after day, in a world that does everything it can to lull you back to sleep. Because once you wake up, the game changes. You start seeing what no one wants to see. You notice the distortions, the manipulations, the absurd things dressed up as normal. And then comes the inevitable question, what do I do with this clarity? This is where most people give up, because thinking is painful. It's isolating. It demands confrontation. Not the loud, militant kind of confrontation, but the hardest kind, internal. The fight to not lose yourself in a world screaming for your conformity. Living consciously is like swimming upstream. It's hearing the call of the crowd and choosing silence. It's watching everyone react. While you resist, it's refusing to act on impulse, to conform for convenience, to stay quiet just to be accepted. And the world notices that, and it pushes back. You'll feel the pressure. People will call you arrogant, cold, too intense. They'll say you think you're better than them. They'll try to break you with guilt, mockery, or isolation. But what really bothers them isn't you. It's the mirror your awareness holds up. Because when you choose to think, even silently, you expose the mental laziness of those who don't. And that is uncomfortable. That's why staying lucid is an act of ongoing courage. You don't have to be right all the time, but you have to be present. You have to keep choosing clarity, even when you're tired. You have to keep observing yourself, even when the world wants to distract you. You have to keep standing your ground, even when no one is listening. Here's the truth. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. Lucidity is the light, and it will guide you. even if you walk alone, even if no one understands, even if it costs you comfort. But be careful. Conscious resistance is not about isolating yourself in a bubble of intellectual superiority. It's not about thinking you're the awakened one among the blind. That's just another trap. True awareness comes with humility, the constant reminder that you're also in progress, that you also mess up, that you too can fall back into the crowd if you stop paying attention. So resistance also means vigilance, self-observation, silence, small, consistent choices. It's refusing sensationalism, avoiding excess, seeking truth, even when it doesn't serve your ego. It means being willing to change your mind when needed, and standing firm when your reasoning is solid. It's having a spine in an age of spineless compliance, and yes, it's exhausting, because the crowd gets to rest. They don't have to think. They just react, consume, repost, repeat. They're at peace with the chaos, as long as they don't have to face it. But you're no longer there, and you can't go back. Once you've seen, you can't unsee. Once you've understood, pretending ignorance becomes unbearable. Once your mind has awakened, the world is never the same. So what do you do with that? You hold the line. You keep going. You choose, every single day, to live consciously, even when it hurts. Because it also saves you, keeps you whole, reconnects you with what truly matters. In the end, conscious resistance is less about the world and more about you. About not being corrupted, not becoming automatic, not turning into another functional zombie in the crowd. And if that feels like a small thing, remember, every major shift begins with one conscious individual who refuses to conform. We've reached the point where you can't pretend anymore. You know, you feel it, you see it. It's not just discomfort now, it's urgency. It's like something inside you is whispering, either I rise now, or I'll be swallowed by the stupidity surrounding me. The world won't pause so you can think. It won't give you time, or space, or permission. And that's exactly why thinking is a radical act. And choosing to act from that awareness is even more powerful. Here's the harsh, unavoidable truth. You either wake up or you get swallowed. Swallowed by the noise, by fear, by the flow of the crowd, by the endless wave of distractions, empty promises, and fabricated narratives. Swallowed by the comfortable lies that trade your freedom for convenience, by the normalization of insanity, by the culture of ignorance disguised as authenticity. Sure, it's easier to stay asleep, easier to laugh at the memes, easier to believe the slogans, easier to obey without thinking. But the price of that is you. You become an echo, a cog, a replaceable part in the machinery of obedience disguised as opinion. And then, one day, you realize that no one silenced you. You silenced yourself. That's the fate of those who sit it out, who feel the discomfort but choose to ignore it, who see the smoke but don't ask where the fire is, who know something's wrong but smile to avoid causing trouble. But now that you know, there's no turning back. You've been infected by awareness, and awareness demands. It calls, it provokes. You can choose, and that freedom makes you responsible. Because while collective stupidity feeds on the silence of the awake, consciousness can only survive when it's put into action. Thinking is the first act. Speaking is the second. Acting, that's what changes everything. And don't get it twisted. Acting doesn't mean burning everything down. It means standing with clarity wherever you are. At work, in conversation, online, in how you consume, respond, choose, educate, and exist. Organized stupidity doesn't need your support, just your absence. If you go quiet, it grows. If you laugh with it, it strengthens. If you hesitate, it shapes you. So this isn't just a reflection, it's a call. Are you going to let others think for you? Bow your head just to fit in? repeat what everyone else says, even though you know it's wrong? Or are you going to accept the risk of staying awake in a numb world? The cost of being conscious in a system built to reward sleep. The choice is yours. But don't think it's neutral. Every silence is a vote. Every absence is an endorsement. Every act of cowardice gives stupidity more ground to claim. And if you feel the world is broken, if you see the hollowness behind society's truths, if you can no longer laugh at what everyone else finds funny, then maybe, just maybe, you've been called to something greater. Something you won't find in books or diplomas. Something that starts with a discomfort and grows in silence. The realization that autopilot is no longer an option. You can try to forget this message, try to go back to the rhythm of distraction, but your awareness has heard it, and it won't stay quiet.